it officially sold. If you've seen the news recently, TAO Group did sell to I forget the guy's exact name, but they sold to the co-founder of Poker Stars or something, right? Poker Stars. Did you guys read that?
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm familiar with the company, but I'm not super familiar with everything that they do. But $550 million. But back then, I had gone for it, and funny enough, very similar valuation to what I was hoping to raise in order to buy it. So my valuation wasn't too far off, which is good news. But they did not allow me to even sit at the table because I was not rich enough. For money purposes or something like that, the way TAO Group kind of set up, it wasn't going to be like that. There's no deal that's like too large, theoretically, for bars in Hoboken that I couldn't go and get. But it was just a weird thing. Like, I remember talking to my accountant who's in the hospitality space for a long time. And he goes, hey, yeah, go for it. And I'll make some calls. Hopefully you can get in. But just so you know, they're not going to let you in. And I was just like, I don't like being told that. So, like, I was, like, adamant. Like, I'm going to go get there. Like, I had some political friends reach out. Like, the way we got set up at Goldman was through the CEO of Goldman Sachs. And I was like, okay, CEO is telling them to sit down with us. They're gonna allow us to, like, put an offer in. Nope, not at all. They're like, nah, listen, probably not gonna let you in. So then I went through my sports contacts to MSG, sat with the guy that's running the sale on the MSG side, and he liked us. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna go call Goldman. I'd love to have you. Now he could have called Goldman and been like, hey, this is a courtesy, blah blah blah. But it seemed like it went well. He reached out to me afterwards to stay connected, so it seemed like he liked me. But then he was like, hey, sorry, Goldman came back and said, no, we're not letting anyone else sit at the table right now. And I was just like, it was just such a strange thing where I'm like, hey, listen, I can get you $350 million. And they're like, no, thank you. No,
well,
thank you.
if you go back into the Hall of Records of Sorry We're Closed, if you remember this, Patrick, which you definitely do, there was an episode where we talked about the guy who bought the New York Islanders.
Oh, yeah.
And he just made everything up. Like, the guy was, like, making, like, $55K a year. And he was going to drop. He was like, yeah, I'm going to spend, like, $500 million on the New York Islanders. And he didn't have $8,000 to his name.
Yeah.
And, like, it, like, went into this, like, huge, like, it's like an ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on this guy about how he just completely shammed the entire NHL and the commissioner of the NHL. And he changed the logo. Like, he did so much with no money at all.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I ended up talking to a friend of mine about this project and just kind of going through the things. And a lot of times, and I mentioned this on the show before, the old Boris guy that we would do the psychological stuff, sports psychology for us, he used to talk about how, listen, sometimes you're just going to call me and you're just going to talk because when you talk, you can only focus on what you're talking about, so you end up coming to the solution yourself. So I ended up talking with somebody about this, and I sat there and I was like, of course, like, if I was in their shoes, why the hell would they give me a go? I don't want to deal with this guy. I just met this guy. His website looks nice. Thanks, Sean. His website looks nice, and he's got 5 bars in Hoboken. Yeah, that's great. But, their total worth of the 5 bars is, depending on the valuation you give, is what, $20 million? $20-30 million. So, like, in reality, we're asking for, 100x what this guy has done before. Like, it doesn't. Listen, we appreciate it. You seem like a nice guy, but you're probably the last resort we have in order to go do this. You get on your high horse. I can do this. Me, I go for anything. So, like, if the Fountain Blue was selling in Miami, I'd be like, yeah, I could totally buy that. I could totally raise that money. So, like, it's just like, I'm just going to keep going for things. But you talk through this process, and you're like, I understand why it didn't work and why it didn't happen.
It's got to also be maybe like a deal like that's got to be complicated, right? So there's maybe it has something to do with, like, the resource that you might have at your disposal inside a newer company. That may be easier. Like, you have attorneys and stuff who are just like who are specifically for this purpose. That they've been like, this guy, I'm gonna deal with this guy. Like, okay, he's a hardworking guy, but like, like he's like a jack of all trades guy. Let me try and figure this out.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, this type of deal, like, it's like, when I bought Texas Arizona 80 River, Like I sat there, I used my account a little bit, but I sat there and gave it a valuation. The first raise to go, let's say where we get to it, you're like, all right, you come in, you can sit at the table, here are the docs, right? The first raise is raising like $2 million just to hire a firm to go in there and properly evaluate the company and go through all 85 places and see. I mean, they have places across the world, so they have different currencies coming in. So, like, to raise that and figure out exactly what the proper – you have to hire, like, a team of lawyers and accountants to go in there and properly evaluate the business before you could even get to the point where you're like, okay, this is what I think it's worth. So I had to go unless it's coming out of my pocket, I have to go raise, a couple $1 million just to properly evaluate the place. Whereas this, the guy from PokerStars is like, yeah, no, I already have my team. Guys, go do this for me. Let me know what you think it's worth, and we'll go from there. It's a completely different process when dealing with me.
Yeah.
Because even if I had, let's say, $2 million in cash to go do this, I'm not nearly rich enough to be like, yeah, let's see if this is worth it. $2 million.
What they're definitely trying to avoid is having to tell somebody like, hey, we need you to come up with such and such fee, and they're like, okay, great, and then that person goes, how to come up with such and such fee.
Yeah, they don't want that guy. So anyway, I understand it, but it's also good. I made a connection. Actually, spoke with the guy this morning from Goldman Sachs that was running the sale. Just wanted to continue that connection and say, hey, listen, we're going to hopefully grab some dinner here soon. Just to kind of keep that up, because it's not like just $400 million deals that come across his desk that people want to sell. Sometimes it's $20 million and $30 million.
Isn't it like, here's the lesson, right? It's like, isn't it amazing, like when you just like act like you belong, like how far you can get? I was surprised at how far you got in that deal.